Hey guys, welcome to Pinpoint Tutoring's video series on entering algebra, right? Once again, follow us on Instagram at pinpoint_tutoring. Follow us on Facebook at Pinpoint Tutoring Services. If you're on YouTube already watching this video, then you knew where to find us. Spread the word and help people understand some more algebra. These are my building block series, and this is episode 2. Now, we already talked about what is X or Y. Just as a recap, it is one number that we don't really know what it is yet, right? If I had 5 pieces of candy, again to reiterate the last one, if I had 5 pieces of candy and in a scuffle somewhere I lost, or I had 3 pieces of candy stolen from me, or some pieces of candy stolen I didn't quite know yet, if I then wound up at home with only 2 pieces of candy, then I know 3 must have been stolen from me. So go back and watch the previous video and see how I kind of put that together. And then we figured out what x plus 2 was. You can see the previous video explain that as well, but it's just saying if I get back home and mom gives me some candy, I don't know how much yet, but if she gives me some candy in addition to the 2 that I had left with me, then I had 10 pieces of candy, and that means that mom must have given me 8 pieces of candy. But go back and see the previous video to see a fuller explanation of what I'm doing in that situation. Now, what does 3y mean? 3y, this expression, while it seems a little bit odd, is not saying 32 or 3y with some number that we don't know. This actually represents multiplication. When we say 3y, we really mean 3 times y, right? So if y were 2, if y is 2, 3y is not 32. You got to understand that. This is not a number like 30 something. It's not. This expression means 3 times some number. 3 multiplying some number. So if y is 2, and this is again getting into some if and then statements, but you'll kind of see that coming on down the pipeline. If y is 2, 3y is not 32. 3y is then 3 times 2. And if you're good at your times table, you know that 3 times 2 is 6. So this is where we're at so far, multiplying variables that we don't know yet. We can't tell what this is, but we know that it kind of is a number. Right? So 3y represents something. So to kind of build on the last example that I've done, let's say mom gave me 8 pieces of candy, right? In the previous example, mom gave me 8 pieces of candy. Watch the previous video to see what I'm talking about if you don't know. So mom gave me 8 pieces of candy. Now, if I go to my dad and say, Dad, I had this whole horrible situation in the story or whatever, and mom gave me 8 pieces of candy, and my dad says, oh, well, here's some more candy, right? But if he has, for some reason, taken my 8 pieces of candy and multiplied it by some number to where I now count, and my pieces of candy are, let's say, 80. Pops is pretty generous, right? He gave me a whole bunch of candies. Now, I can look at that a couple of ways. I can say he gave me 72 pieces of candy, right? That's one way if I had a y plus something equal to 80, like the previous example. But if I now say that Pops kind of multiplied the numbers of candy I had by a certain number, and I wound up with 80 candies, by now you must know that since 8 times y is giving me 80, y itself must be 10. Now you don't quite know the solving steps on how to put this together yet, but that's where this video is leading towards. Right now I just kind of want you to understand a couple of things about how these work. This 8y being equal to 80 really means 8 multiplying some number that I don't know yet gives me 80. And this really means that y is 10. And since y is 10, I can now say that my dad gave me 10 times more candy, or about 10 times more candy as I did before. I now have 80 pieces of candy, which is 10 times more pieces of candy that I had before, right? So that's what this multiplication is kind of doing. Don't take these videos too seriously. Just kind of get flexible with it, right? So let's try another one just to kind of test it out. Say you had a certain amount, and this is kind of to flip the problem a little bit on its head. Say you were given 4 pieces of candy from somewhere else. And someone says, I'm going to either, we don't know yet, you don't know yet if they doubled it, or if they tripled it, or if they quadrupled the amount of things that you had, but you somehow wound up with, say, 20 of whatever you had before. Let's make it specific. Say I had 4 pencils, and a teacher comes in and they're generous and they choose to multiply the amount of pencils that you have by a certain number. Let's say that number we don't know yet is Z, the letter Z. So your number of pencils got multiplied by some amount. And for that to have given you 20, you know that 4 times Z being equal to 20 means that Z must be equal to 5. Right? So this person came in and made your number of pencils 5 times bigger than it was before. You had 4 pieces of pencils, or you had 4 pencils, and it got multiplied by 5. This person gave you 5 times as much pencils as you had before, in a sense. Don't take it too seriously, right? But just kind of understand what these fluidity and kind of terms of manipulating algebraic expressions mean. And that's a fancy term, but all it's saying is, can you multiply by this number that you don't know? Can you add to this number that you don't know? Can you subtract from this number that you don't know? And so on and so forth. Now, what does y equals 3x plus 2 mean? We're getting there now. Or what does 3y equal 15 mean? That now means, what 3y is equal to 15 means is what I just went over. And that kind of helped you understand it a little bit. So in this case, say you had 3 pens. And someone came in and they must have multiplied the number of pens you had by 5 to get 15. Because 3 times 5 is 15. And lastly, what it means when we say that y is equal to 3x plus 2. This is the daunting piece of information. This is what algebra is kind of leading to. You will understand this a little bit better, but let me take another video to get that clearly explained properly. So.